Okay, super. So, Glenn and
Zen.
we're I'm always, we're looking for weird stories all the time. I'm always asking other people, and I heard a story from Zen regarding a very odd occurrence here in Canyon City, Colorado, and it sounded like a gargoyle. And so we kind of chased it down. And I just want Zen to give give your description, what you experienced, maybe walk us into it, your background a little bit, because you've got kind of a cool background. Walk us into it, and then tell us kind of what you saw, what you experienced, what you heard, all that stuff. Just kind of a step-by-step into it.
All right. Okay. Well, it was probably late summer, early fall-ish area, so when it's still warm, but it's kind of starting to cool down a little bit.
About what year?
About 3 years ago.
So 2018?
2018, 2019.
Okay.
No, it was 2018 because the squishy wasn't born yet. But I'm coming from, it used to be a vet tech. Went to school for it, and then eventually my vision went away, so I can't do that anymore. But it's enough that almost any, especially your normal average house pet, any animal you're going to see in an urban environment, I know what that sounds like. I know what it looks like, even if it's just a brief glance. I know what it is. I know we have raccoons around here. I see them all the time. I've had arguments with them. We do have a bear around here, and coyotes, and I've seen all of them. However, I've never seen any of those. Well, I've seen the raccoons up on the roof, but I've never seen any of the other ones on the roof. That would be difficult. But this night, I heard something scream.
Okay, pause. This is the second night, though.
Yes,
Let's go to the first night.
First night, I just hear something scream outside, and we all kind of stopped what we were doing, and we're like, "Did you hear that?" And we're both sitting there like, "Yeah," but we had no clue what it was, and then it happened again. And I went, okay, it's high-pitched, but it sounded like it could have been a death scream.
Okay.
Of course, we have predators around here, so I'm like, okay, it's a death scream. And just went right on with my business.
So you heard 2 screams the first night.
Yeah.
How far away where were those in relation to you? I mean, were they outside?
They were outside.
Here?
We were inside in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner, trying to chase children into beds. And, we wrote it off. And he kind of went, "Are you sure?" I'm like, that's the only thing I can think of that would sound like that.
Sure.
And so we wrote it off because we have the multiple various predators, and just went, okay. The next night it happens again.
About the same time?
Probably around the same time, right at 9, 10 at night. It's nice and dark outside. And we hear it again, and we're like, okay, what the heck? Something can't do death screams 2 nights in a row. It's already dead. And so I'm like, oh, and this time it's closer. And so I'm like, okay, I want to go out, just peek out back, see if I can figure out if it's, right next to us, because if it's something I can help, I'm going to help, because that instinct to help an animal like that doesn't go away.
Sure.
Ever. And so I step outside, and I'm looking around my backyard, and I don't see anything in front, so I step out a little bit farther away from my door, and I'm looking around, and all of a sudden I hear skittering on my roof. And I'm like, great, the coon's on my roof. Because that's the only thing that's ever been on my roof are the bloody raccoons. And I look up. This thing is not a raccoon. This thing is like the size of a small child. And much bigger than a raccoon. I'm not getting any bushy fur vibes from it. I mean, it's up in the shadows, but I can see its eyes glowing from something.
And what color were they glowing?
They were glowing green.
Like lime green, like dark green?
Like the reflection green that you get off something, but it was still odd because I don't have a bunch of light out there. The light is below it, underneath the eaves of my roof.
You didn't have a flashlight with you?
I didn't have it with me because, again, I was just looking to see if it was something close. I didn't necessarily want to go playing with a predator at the moment.
Sure.
That sounded like a bad idea. And I sit there, and this thing is looking right at me.
And it's up on the roof.
It's up on the roof above my door.
So we'll go look at that a little bit here. But, yeah. So it's up there. How was it standing? How was it?
It was crouched down, like its hands, for lack of a better. It gave me a very primate type feel, just from what body structure I could make out in that lighting.
So where were the hands?
The hands were like out beside its knees, and it's just like crouched there on the ground.
So this would be a normal, like a cat
That'd be a cat or something.
or something like that with his knees on the outside and hands on.
Right.
But you were saying
it was more
it was
like
more
that.
like this. Were the knees together? Were they splayed?
They were together.
They were together.
They were together.
How close to the edge of the roof was it?
It had to be within 6 inches from the roof for me to get what I could of it. It was right there. And it's staring at me. This only lasted for maybe a few seconds, but I'm sitting there mildly frozen because I'm like, what the heck is that? I've never seen anything like that. I don't see a snout on it, so it's not, again, I'm not seeing a bushy tail or anything like you would register with a raccoon's. No ears on its head, nothing. And so I'm legit at a loss. It looks primate-ish to me. All of a sudden, it starts scurrying over my roof. Right as it gets out of my line of view, you hear it go from what sounds like 4 feet to 2 feet, running over the roof and jumping off the back end.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, I was sitting there very much having a what the hell was that moment.
Sure.
And I go running in. I'm like, please tell me you heard that. And he heard the screams and he heard something skittering. And we've always heard skittering around our roof. We thought it was the raccoons.
Sure.
And then I see this thing. I'm like, that wasn't a raccoon. That was too big to be a raccoon.
Now, the figure, it's got its knees together, arms. Did it have shoulders?
Yeah. From what I could tell, not exactly the best light.
Okay. So again, it's bad light. So yeah, because the cat doesn't have shoulders.
No, not really. Not that you would identify our shoulders exactly.
Yeah. Did it have hair? Could you tell if it had hair or anything? Or
if it did, it was very short.
okay.
Because I mean, even from shadows, you can kind of see if it's long, fluffy hair. But I didn't see any of that.
Okay. Did you see any skin of any sort?
Not exactly.
Just a shape.
Just mostly the shape.
And
eyes.
And eyes. Is that so? That's what you locked onto was the eyes?
Yeah. So the main thing I noticed was the eyes because there's these big green orbs just staring at me, and I'm like, "What are you doing on my roof?"
How large?
They were pretty big.
Like compared to the head size, I mean, were they like? I mean, cat's eyes are one size, dog's eyes are another. Were they? I mean, there's some monkeys that have gigantic
eyes. I would
eyes.
say they were more again like primate, like huge eyes in the skull. But definitely bigger than a human's are.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Were they close? Were they far apart?
They were very front forward, just like yours and I's are. Very front forwarding, which is a predator thing. There's the pet knowledge in my head. But front forwarding, staring straight at me, and just focused in. And I'm like, please don't do something stupid. I don't feel like it.
Could you see anything else of the face?
Not easily.
Did you see a nose, mouth, anything?
Not really. Not from where I was.
So you were locked on the eyes.
Yeah, it was a prey response to a predator eyes locking on you. You sit there and you make that gaze.
Did its expression change at all when you looked at it?
Not in the couple seconds that we were staring at each other, and then it just immediately turned right around and freaking booked it.
So did the whole body turn when it turned, or did its head turn, or what?
All of it turned and just was gone. I mean, this thing was fast. Like, I barely registered that it was moving before it was out of view.
Okay. And you heard it skitter off the back?
Heard it skitter, heard the thump as it landed in the field behind the house, and then
interesting.
nothing.
So you heard a thump.
I heard a thump. You heard it land, and then it was just gone.
I want to get one of these kids to maybe jump in the back and just hear what that thump sounds like to see if... I mean, because if you heard a thump from one side of the house to the other side of the house and heard a thump, that's significant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a cat. A cat would be... They're pretty darn stealthy. They don't make a lot of thump.
No, not really.
So this would be some weight.
There's some weight to this thing. Like I said, it wasn't exactly small.
Any tail? Any other details?
I didn't register any tail. I didn't register ears. The back limbs were definitely long enough that it could easily be bipedal.
Okay.
Just from how it was sitting, you could tell that the knees were far enough up that there's no way it was purely quadrupedal.
You couldn't see paws or hands or anything like that?
Just because the roof was kind of in the way.
Just kind of the angle. Well, maybe we can go... We did find something interesting on the back of the roof when we went over there and looked. In fact, the neighbor's roof has the same earmark, so we'll go look at that. But maybe we can go over to where this was
Yeah.
And I'll even climb up there because I got my ladder. I'll climb up there and you could say, hey, scale-wise.
Right.
Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm standing about here by the time I spot it, because I've wandered kind of towards here looking for whatever it was. And I look up and it's right above my door. And easily as big as like an 8-9-year-old kid. So not small, definitely bigger than any raccoon I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And
And then what does it do?
it's just, for a second there, it's just staring at me, and I'm staring back at it, very much having a freak out moment of what the hell are you?
Yeah.
And then it takes off that direction.
And so talk about when you told me it's locomotion in the beginning that it reminds you of.
When it's locomotive, at first it's using all 4 feet, like it's trying to scramble to get going. And then as you're listening to it, you hear it switch to 2 and just jump off the end of the roof.
And then you don't hear anything else.
After the landing, nothing.
All right, so we're here in the back where there's actual physical evidence of damage on the roof where it looks like something's been going up on both sides about the same height and even on the neighbor's roof. So I'm going to show you guys that right now. So you see right here, you can see like where it's broken and they don't get much hail here. And there's nothing, at least right now, to easily explain this, and you can actually see it on the other side too.
Yeah, so I'll climb up, but...
And then even on the neighbors.
Yeah, it's exactly the same height.
And that's the crazy part, because even if it was hail, it wouldn't be the exact same spot.
So from the
Yeah,
break down to here is 10 feet. If you'll notice, that's about 3 feet off the end here. There are no scrape marks on the wall here. Like you're hanging here and you put your feet up here and climb your way up. There's no scrape marks on here, nothing.
So presumably, if we're interpreting this right, it hops up and just pulls itself up without using its feet, which would indicate incredible strength.
Or it gets all the way up there.
Or it brings its foot all the way up after it grabs on. Because look over here on the side, you can see like where it's less scraped, not as broken, as if something's been, like a leg maybe. Maybe that's a leg like brushing up against there. Do you see how the paint's been taken off?
No, that's just, see, that's consistent all the way up though. It's just weathering.
Okay, so maybe that's weathering too.
But this is bent down. Something bent
There's
this
been
down.
weight on the...
Something definitely bent this down. I mean, I don't, okay,
Be careful.
by hand, I'm not gonna do it. But I can hang here by hand, but I'd definitely need to use my feet to try and get up there, and I'd scrape the heck out of the wall. This is actually damaged in 3 places. 1 here, 2 here, and a 3rd one here. That one over there, you can see it, that's only one place where it's damaged.
It looks like it's this house gets jumped on much more than the other
More
ones.
than the other ones. This is crazy, and that's 10 feet. Okay, and then so how often? When did you first start? When is the first time you heard this sound?
First time that we heard it actually scream and registered that it was something right outside was probably that incident 3 years ago.
About 3 years ago.
About 3 years ago.
Since then, have you heard it? Since then?
We've heard it a few times. It's been about like a month and a half since I've actually registered that it was it.
The same
Same sound. We have often heard, just on an almost weekly basis, heard something up on the roof.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of times I'll be like, oh, it's the raccoons. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm like, is it the raccoons or is it that thing?
Right.
I don't feel like going outside and seeing it.
And seeing it again. Now, is it a seasonal thing that you've heard this, or is it?
It happens more during like summer, fall, spring.
Okay.
Not as much during the winter that we've noticed.
Have you ever heard the screaming in the wintertime that you remember?
Not that I can remember, honestly.
Have you ever heard anything on the roof in the wintertime?
Yes.
You have.
And that was the one that I'm like, there's no way it's raccoons because raccoons hibernate.
So you've heard something on the roof in the wintertime, in the snow?
Not in the snow. And we don't get a lot of know here.
No, we don't,
It's,
no.
it's rare that you actually have any that stays for more than 2 hours.
Yeah. But you've heard it in the wintertime.
I've heard it in the wintertime up there.
Interesting. Same type
Same
of sound.
type of, like something walking around on the roof.
Bipedal or
Usually bipedal when I notice it. The ones that are quadpedal, I'm just like, oh, it's the bloody raccoon.
well, because a cat's going to be silent. You're not
A
going to hear a
cat
cat
you're not
walking
going to pick
there.
up. It has to be heavier than that.
Has to be heavier than that. Interesting.
I mean, there for a while we legit thought that there was a human up there because of how heavy it is.
Oh wow. Okay.
And like the first few times after we moved in that we heard it, my boyfriend would run outside and be like, "Why is someone on our roof?" And he never saw it.
Never saw anything.
But we'd hear it, and after a while, we're just like, it's a really big raccoon or something that's making these noises. Because it's not a cat. Cats don't sound like that. They don't
Yeah.
make that much noise.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Well, thank you. I mean, who knows? It's a mystery,
Yeah.
and we'll continue chasing this down. If something like this comes up again, or if you hear something, let us know, because it would be really interesting to see if there's any sign or track out there.
Yeah.
An experiment that might be interesting to do would be place some cornmeal, something inexpensive,
Yeah,
that's a
something
powder,
whatever.
and toss it out there, and see if
If we can pick up
you can see a track of some sort.
Put it on the roof itself.
Put it on the
So
roof
when
itself.
he
That would
jumps
be,
up there, it's just like, oh.
yeah,
There's stuff up here now.
that'd be an
It would leave
interesting
tracks everywhere.
experiment. I don't know. I mean, with the rain, we don't know,
Yeah.
but.
Well, yeah, today.
Well, cool. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate you
Thank
sharing.
you.
And if anybody else has heard anything weird like this, let us know, because it's a cool, interesting mystery.